The Valnari fleet drifted through the dark space, broken and silent. Once they had been proud warriors, rulers of 5-star systems, their ships shining like silver moons across the galaxy. Now they were nothing more than survivors, running from death. The enemy was close behind, the Zarth Dominion, a ruthless empire that destroyed everything in its path. They had been hunted for weeks, chased from one star to another, every battle leaving their ships weaker and their hearts colder. Admiral Tarek stood on the bridge of his command ship, the Varen's Hope. The walls flickered with fading lights, the energy cores were nearly empty, and the crew moved like ghosts. Their eyes were hollow, their voices tired. He looked out the viewing glass at the stars. They used to be beautiful. Now they felt like tombs waiting to close around them. "Admiral," said First Officer Nira softly, "the engines are failing again. We can't keep running." Tarek's hands tightened behind his back. His armor scratched and burned. "How many ships remain?" he asked quietly. "Only 16, sir," she answered. "From the original 200. A silence fell over the bridge, heavy and cold. 16 ships out of 200. That was all that was left of the Valnari defense fleet. The Admiral walked toward the center of the command deck, his boots echoing. Every officer turned to look at him, waiting for orders, waiting for hope. But there was none left. "We have nowhere to run," Tarek said at last, his voice low. "The Zarth will find us within the hour." His second-in-command lowered her head. The entire crew stared at the floor, as if waiting for the end. For a moment, Tarek thought of his homeworld, Valna Prime, the blue oceans, the twin suns. The laughter of his children, now all gone. Burned under the Zarth's flame, he closed his eyes and whispered to himself, "We should have never fought them." But deep down, he knew they had no choice. The Zarth would have destroyed them anyway. The Valnari fought for survival, but the enemy's power was beyond understanding. Suddenly, a sharp beep broke the silence. "Admiral," called the communications officer, "we are receiving something, an unknown signal." Tarek frowned. "From who? The Zarth?" "No, sir," the officer replied. It's not their frequency, it's something else." The crew exchanged confused looks. The signal was weak, almost lost in static, but it carried a message, simple and strange. "Valnari Fleet, this is Human Expeditionary Command. We have received your distress signal. Hold position." For a long second, no one moved. Then laughter, small and nervous, spread through the crew. "Humans," one of the officers said. "That's impossible." "Humans are ancient myths," another voice added. "They're primitive. They don't even travel beyond their own star." But the signal repeated, clearer this time. "Valnari Fleet, this is Human Command. We are en route. Hold position." Admiral Tarek felt a chill run down his spine. He looked at Nira. "Did we send a distress signal?" "No, sir, not intentionally," she replied. "Our last transmission may have gone out before the power drop, but it was random, not directed." "So how did they find us?" Tarek whispered. No one had an answer. Minutes passed. The fleet floated in silence, surrounded by debris and shadows. Every officer tried to make sense of the name, Human. Old records from the Galactic Archive mentioned them once. A species from a small blue planet called Earth. They had no empire, no advanced weapons, and yet, every record said the same thing. They were dangerous. Not because of power, but because of their will. They fought even when they had no chance. They survived what others could not. "Admiral," Nira said, "should we respond?" Tarek stared at the dark screen in front of him. For a long moment he said nothing. Then, slowly, he nodded. "Open a channel." The officer tapped a few controls. Static filled the air. "This is Admiral Tarek of the Valnari Fleet," he said. "Identify yourself." There was a short pause, then a calm voice replied, "This is Commander Jane Armitage, United Terran Fleet. We are here to assist." The sound of her voice was steady, human, yet confident in a way that made Tarek's heart stir. He could almost feel the strength behind her words. "Assist?" he said bitterly. "You have no idea what we face." "We do," she answered. "And we've faced worse." The communication ended. Leaving the bridge, silent once again, the Valnari officers turned toward their admiral. Confused and uncertain, Tarek looked out the window at the endless dark. "Humans," he murmured almost to himself, "if they are real, may the stars protect them." Moments later, the sensors lit up. New ships were coming out of hyperspace, small, metallic, old-fashioned compared to Valnari designs. But there was something powerful about them, something strange. Their engines glowed with a deep blue light unlike any energy the Valnari had ever seen. The bridge crew gasped as the human fleet appeared. A dozen ships, maybe more, surrounding the Valnari like guardians. They moved in perfect formation, quiet but full of purpose. Admiral Tarek felt something he had not felt in years. Hope. He didn't know who these humans were, or how they found them, but one thing was clear. The story of the Valnari was not over yet, and whatever was about to happen next would change the galaxy forever. The human ships came out of hyperspace like silent ghosts, their hulls dark and rough, built for battle, not beauty. Each vessel carried strange markings, white letters that read UTF across their sides. To the Valnari, these ships looked small, old, almost primitive, but something about them felt powerful, alive. Their engines glowed with that strange blue energy. Pulsing like a living heart, Admiral Tarek stood frozen on his bridge, staring at the ships that surrounded his dying fleet. No one spoke, no one moved. Every Valnari officer waited, unsure if this was rescue or another kind of doom. "Admiral," said Nira quietly. "Their lead ship is hailing us again." Tarek nodded, his throat dry. "Put them through." The screen flickered to life. And for the first time in Valnari history, they saw a human face. Commander Jane Armitage appeared. Her expression calm but sharp. She wore a dark suit of armor, simple but strong, and behind her the bridge of her ship buzzed with activity. "Admiral Tarek," she said, her voice steady. "We are here to assist you." Tarek studied her carefully. "You came all this way," he said. "But your ships, they are small." Armitage smiled slightly. "Don't judge them by size, Admiral. They bite harder than they look." The Valnari officers exchanged confused looks. Human language was direct, simple, strange to their ears. "Commander," Tarek said, "the Zarth Dominion is closing in. Our fleet is weak, our engines are dead, we cannot fight anymore." "I know," Armitage replied. "Your distress signal carried more data than you think. We've analyzed your ships, your systems, your power levels." She looked over her shoulder for a moment, then turned back. "My engineers are ready to begin repairs immediately." Tarek blinked, shocked. "Repairs? That will take days." "Not with our tech," she said confidently. "Just hold your position." The transmission ended, and within minutes, small human shuttles began leaving their ships. They moved fast, attaching to Valnari hulls like insects on a giant beast. Through the viewing glass, Tarek watched them, tiny figures in grey suits, carrying glowing containers and strange devices. "They are actually doing it," whispered Nira, amazed. "Yes," said Tarek softly, "but how?" Inside the ships, Valnari engineers watched as humans worked with incredible speed. They connected wires, fused circuits, and replaced entire cores with compact reactors that pulsed with blue light. One human shouted over the comm, "Quantum fusion drive is online in Sector 3. Another replied, "Stabilizers green, pushing power to main grid." Within moments, systems that had been dead for days started to hum again. Lights returned, engines roared softly, and the ships came alive. The Valnari crew stared in disbelief. "How is this possible?" one engineer asked. "This technology, it should not exist." The human leading the repair smiled beneath her helmet. "We built it because we had to," she said. "Humans don't wait for miracles, we make them." Back on the command deck, Admiral Tarek watched the readouts changing. Energy levels rising, shields stabilizing, oxygen flow restored. His people were whispering, some crying quietly after weeks of running and hiding. Their ships were breathing again. He turned to Nira. "They saved us," he said softly. But Nira shook her head. "Not yet, Admiral. The Zarth are still coming," as if her words had summoned them. The long-range sensors started to scream. Red lights flashed across the bridge. "The enemy fleet has entered the system," shouted the sensor officer. 20 ships, no, 30. Tarek's stomach twisted. They were too close, too fast. There was no time left to flee. Armitage's voice came through the comm once again. "Calm as ever. Admiral, the Zarth are coming." "We see them too." "Yes," he replied grimly. "We are in no condition to fight." "That's where you're wrong," she said. "You just needed the right kind of help." Her words carried a quiet confidence that made Tarek pause. He wanted to believe her, but the odds were impossible. 30 Zarth warships against a handful of human vessels and broken Valnari survivors. It was madness. He opened the channel again. "Commander Armitage, you can't possibly defeat them." "We don't plan to," she said, her eyes sharp. "We plan to break them." Her voice grew harder, colder. "You've seen what they do to others. Admiral, now you'll see what humans do to them." Tarek didn't understand, but he could feel something changing. The human ships began to move, spreading out into formation, their blue engines flaring brighter. Energy readings climbed higher and higher, too high, almost unstable. "What are they doing?" Nira asked. "I don't know," Tarek answered. "But whatever it is, it's dangerous." The human commander's final message came through the comm. "Stay behind us, Admiral. We'll handle the first wave." Her tone was steady, fearless. Even through the static, Tarek could sense her resolve. She didn't sound like a savior or a hero. She sounded like someone ready to fight, even if it meant dying as the Zarth fleet closed in, filling the darkness with their red fire. The Valnari fleet, once broken and hopeless, began to rise again, powered by human energy and human will. And Admiral Tarek realized something that sent a chill down his spine. These humans, they were not gods, they were not myths. They were something far more terrifying. They were believers, the kind who fight when everyone else has already given up, the kind who turn despair into strength, the kind who change everything. The humans moved quickly, their small ships weaving between the giant Valnari cruisers like silver fish in dark water. Inside every Valnari ship, human engineers were working fast. Their voices calm but focused. They didn't waste a single moment. To them, every second mattered. They connected new reactors, rerouted power grids, and uploaded strange codes into Valnari systems. Admiral Tarek watched from the bridge of his flagship, his eyes fixed on the screens as the power levels kept rising. He had never seen anything like it. Human technology looked crude, made of iron and cables, but it worked with perfect precision. It was not beautiful, but it was alive. Their energy cores glowed with deep blue light, a color Tarek had never seen before. It looked like lightning captured inside glass. Even the sound of the engines was different, deep and steady. "Like a heartbeat, Admiral," said Nira, watching the readings. "Their power is stabilizing every system. Shields, life support, everything." Tarek nodded slowly. "They are repairing us faster than our own engineers ever could." He turned toward the communication screen. "Open a channel to the human commander." A moment later, Commander Armitage appeared again, her face illuminated by the glow of her controls. "Commander," Tarek said, "your technology, it's unlike anything we've seen." She smiled slightly. "We built it from necessity, Admiral, not luxury." "What do you mean?" he asked. She looked past him at the stars and said, "Where we come from, survival is never easy. So we learn to make things that don't fail." Tarek felt respect forming inside him. He had seen many species, many empires, but no one like this. These humans were not driven by pride or glory. They were driven by survival and courage. They fixed ships that should not even exist anymore, and now they were planning to fight an enemy no one else dared to face. Armitage spoke again. "Admiral, I need you to listen carefully. The Zarth fleet is 30 ships strong, heavily armed and moving fast. If we face them directly, we'll all die." Her voice remained calm, as if she was describing the weather. "But if we use the right plan, we might just survive." She began outlining her strategy. The Valnari listened in silence as her words echoed through the bridge. The plan was risky, maybe even insane. She wanted to use the Valnari ships as decoys to draw the Zarth's attention. Meanwhile, the human fleet would flank them from behind, using a maneuver she called the Ghost Line. It involved folding their ships through a short hyperspace jump, reappearing directly behind enemy lines. To the Valnari, that was impossible. No known ship could jump that short without tearing itself apart. "You can't do that," said Nira, shocked. "The strain would destroy your ships." Armitage looked at her. "Calm and fearless, it won't," she said. "If we do it right," she leaned closer to the screen, "you just need to hold the enemy long enough for us to strike." Tarek felt a deep unease. "You are risking everything," he said. She nodded once. "That's what humans do best." The human engineers finished their final installations. Now the Valnari fleet shone with blue energy. Stronger than before, the weapons charged. The shields hummed with new life for the first time in weeks. The crew felt power flowing through their ships again. But along with that power came fear. The Zarth fleet was almost within range, and soon the battle would begin. Armitage's voice came through the comm once more. "All human ships, prepare to initiate the Ghost Line maneuver. Valnari fleet, stand by for defensive formation." Her tone was firm, full of command. Even the Valnari officers felt themselves moving faster, responding sharper. There was something contagious about human determination. It spread like fire through the entire fleet. Admiral Tarek took a deep breath. "All ships, follow their lead," he ordered. He could feel the vibration under his feet as the engines roared back to life. Every ship moved into position, forming a wide arc to shield the human vessels. Tarek looked at the tactical display. The Zarth ships were coming closer, red lights filling the edge of the radar. They were massive, armored like monsters, engines burning like suns. "They outnumber us 2-1, said Nira quietly. "Yes," Tarek replied. "But we have something they don't." She looked at him curiously. "What is that, Admiral?" He smiled faintly. "Humans on the human flagship." Armitage gave her final order. "Activate the quantum fusion drives." The blue energy flared brighter, shaking the Valnari ships nearby. The readings went off the scale. It was as if the humans were bending the laws of space itself. Their ships began to fade like ghosts dissolving into light. And then, one by one, they vanished. The Valnari crew stared in shock. "They disappeared," one of them whispered. "No," said Tarek. "They jumped." "But it was too short a distance," Nira protested. "They should have been ripped apart." Tarek shook his head, eyes fixed on the dark space ahead. "They said they'd faced worse," he murmured. Now it was up to the Valnari to face the Zarth alone. At least for a moment, their ships lined up, their new weapons ready, powered by human energy. Tarek raised his hand. "All ships, prepare for contact." He could hear the fear in his crew's breathing, but also something else, strength. The kind that only comes when you know someone believes in you. The first enemy shots lit the darkness. Red plasma streaked through the void, striking the Valnari shields. The ships shook, alarms blared, but the shields held. The human cores were holding the line. For the first time in this war, the Valnari did not retreat. They stood and fought, and far away, unseen in the black of space. The human fleet reappeared behind the enemy. Their engines burned blue like rising stars, and Commander Armitage's voice whispered through the comm. "Now, Admiral, let's change everything." The darkness of space exploded into light. Red plasma, blue energy, and white fire filled the void between the fleets. The Zarth Dominion had arrived, their ships massive and terrifying, shaped like iron beasts. They came in perfect formation, cold and merciless, their weapons burning with crimson glow. Admiral Tarek gripped the command rail of his ship, his eyes locked on the approaching enemy. "Hold formation," he ordered. His voice steady though his heart raced. The Valnari fleet opened fire, streams of bright energy flashing through the blackness. Their new human-powered weapons struck the enemy shields and burst like suns. For the first time in this war, the Valnari were not running. They were fighting. "Shields at 70%, Nira called out, her hands moving fast across the console. The ship shook violently as another blast hit them. Tarek steadied himself. "Return fire. Focus on their lead cruiser." Dozens of Valnari guns turned and fired. The air on the bridge filled with the deep hum of power. Outside, space lit up with the fury of battle. But even as the Valnari fought with new strength, the Zarth kept advancing. Their weapons were stronger, their armor thicker. Each blast tore through the Valnari ranks, sending fragments of broken ships spinning into the void. "Admiral," Nira shouted, "we can't hold much longer." "Keep firing," he replied, his jaw tight. "We promised them time, because somewhere out there, hidden behind the chaos, the humans were preparing to strike. They had vanished using their strange quantum drives, and the Zarth hadn't noticed. All attention was on the Valnari, who fought like cornered beasts. Every Valnari ship that fell made the others fight harder. They weren't just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting for the humans to return. Then, suddenly, the stars behind the Zarth fleet began to shimmer like ripples across the surface of water. And out of that light the humans returned. One by one their ships appeared. Engines blazing blue, weapons glowing white-hot. Commander Armitage stood on her bridge, calm but fierce. "Target the central dreadnought," she said, "and fire all weapons." The human ships unleashed everything at once. Beams of blue energy cut through the darkness like blades. The Zarth fleet twisted in confusion, turning too late. One of their battleships exploded, its fire spreading through the formation. Admiral Tarek watched in awe as the humans fought. Their ships were smaller, weaker, but faster, deadlier. They moved with impossible precision, weaving through enemy fire like lightning. "Admiral," Nira gasped, "they are breaking the Zarth line." Tarek nodded slowly, unable to look away. He had seen many battles in his life, but nothing like this. The humans fought without hesitation, without fear. They didn't fight to survive. They fought to win. A voice came through the comm. It was Commander Armitage, her tone calm but full of fire. "Admiral, push forward now. Hit them from the front." Tarek didn't think twice. "All ships, full advance," he ordered. The Valnari fleet surged forward, joining the humans in the attack. The battle became chaos and light. Everywhere explosions bloomed like dying stars. Metal burned, energy cracked, ships fell apart. But through it all, the humans kept moving. A human pilot shouted over the radio, "I'm going in." His ship, already damaged, dove straight toward the Zarth flagship. "Pull back," Armitage called, but he didn't answer. He rammed his ship directly into the enemy core. The explosion lit up space brighter than a sunrise. The Zarth flagship tore apart in a storm of fire. The entire fleet faltered, their formation broken on the Valnari bridge. Silence filled the air. Then cheers erupted. "Direct hit!" cried the weapons officer. "The enemy command ship is destroyed." Tarek could barely breathe. He turned to Nira. "Did you see that?" She nodded, tears in her eyes. "They don't even fear death." "No," Tarek said softly. "They fear giving up." But the fight was not over. Even as the Zarth fleet began to retreat, smaller ships turned to fight back. Missiles and plasma bolts streaked across the void. One human ship exploded. Then another. Armitage stood tall on her bridge, her voice calm. "Keep firing. Don't stop. Make them run." Her crew obeyed without hesitation. They fought with everything they had until the last enemy ship vanished into hyperspace. Then there was only silence. Broken ships drifted across the battlefield. Flames and wreckage floated in the darkness, glowing softly like embers in the night. The battle was over. The Zarth fleet was gone. Admiral Tarek looked around his bridge. Half his crew were gone. Half his ships destroyed. But he was alive, and so were his people. He looked toward the human flagship and whispered, "They did it." Nira placed a hand on his shoulder. "No, Admiral," she said quietly. "We did it. Together. Far away." On her ship, Commander Armitage closed her eyes and exhaled. Her armor was cracked, her hands burned, but she smiled faintly. "Status report," she asked. Her officer replied, "Heavy losses, Commander, but the Zarth are retreating." She nodded slowly. "Then it's worth it." Outside her window, the Valnari ships drifted closer, forming a circle around the human fleet. For the first time in history, two species had fought side by side and survived. In that quiet moment, surrounded by wreckage and starlight, the galaxy changed because the legend of what humans did that day would never be forgotten. And even those who once doubted their strength would remember. When the humans arrive, even the impossible can happen. The silence after battle was heavy. The stars were still burning, but the space around them felt quiet. No more explosions, no more screams, only drifting pieces of broken ships floating like ghosts. The great war between the Valnari and the Xarth had ended in a place where no one expected victory. And it had ended because of the humans. Admiral Tarek stood on the bridge of his ship, the lights dim and flickering. Smoke hung in the air, the floor cracked, panels broken. But the ship was still alive. His people were alive. That alone felt like a miracle. "Admiral," Nira said softly, "the Xarth fleet has retreated completely. They are gone." Tarek closed his eyes, letting out a deep breath he didn't realize he was holding. "Gone," he repeated, the word feeling strange, almost unreal. He turned toward the window and looked at the distant human fleet. Their ships were damaged, many burned, some barely holding together. Yet even broken, they still looked strong. There was something in them that defied defeat. He opened a channel to the human flagship. After a few seconds, Commander Armitage appeared on the screen, her face tired but calm. Her armor was scratched, her hair messy, yet her eyes still carried that same fire. "Commander," Tarek said, bowing his head slightly, "the Valnari owe you everything." She shook her head. "You don't owe us, Admiral. We only did what was right." "You did more than that," he replied. "You saved a civilization." Armitage smiled faintly. "Maybe, but we didn't come here to save anyone. We came here to fight." Her tone was simple, honest, and it made Tarek respect her even more. Around them, rescue shuttles moved between ships, pulling survivors from wreckage. Both human and Valnari crews worked together, side by side. The war had turned enemies and strangers into allies, and that bond, forged in fire, would not be easily broken. Later, as the damage reports came in, Tarek walked to the viewing deck alone. He stared out into the endless black sky, thinking of all that had been lost. Then he thought of what had been gained. Hope, something he had not felt in a very long time. He touched the glass and whispered quietly. "Humans," he said. "They changed everything." Far across the deck, Nira joined him. "Do you think they'll stay, Admiral?" she asked. Tarek smiled slightly. "No, they are wanderers. They never stay long. They fight, they build, and then they move on. But wherever they go," he added softly, "the galaxy will remember them." On the human flagship, Commander Armitage stood before her crew. They were exhausted, wounded, but alive. She looked at them and said, "You've done something no one thought possible. You've proven that courage is not about size or power or technology. It's about will." Her crew didn't cheer. They simply nodded because they all understood. They had seen the worst of war and still refused to fall. She turned toward the stars and whispered to herself, "Another world saved, another story to tell." Her voice was quiet, but the words carried across the bridge like a promise. As their ships prepared to jump back into hyperspace, the Valnari fleet formed a salute formation. Every ship turned its lights toward the humans, glowing bright blue in honor. Tarek's voice echoed through the communication link. "To the humans," he said, "the ones who came when no one else would. To the ones who turned despair into victory." The human commander smiled softly. "Until next time, Admiral," she said, "may your stars burn bright." The human fleet's engines roared to life, glowing brighter and brighter until the ships became streaks of light, and then in a flash, they were gone. Only silence remained. The Valnari ships floated in that silence, surrounded by the wreckage of their past and the hope of their future. Admiral Tarek stood alone on his bridge, his eyes still on the stars where the humans had vanished. He whispered quietly, "They changed everything." And from that day forward, every Valnari child learned those same words. Stories were told across the galaxy of the day when all hope was lost. And the humans did the impossible, because when the humans fight, even the stars themselves hold their breath.